We've all known Ford and GM for a long time. Hell, we might even own cars manufactured by them at least once in our lifetime. But what if I tell you that these billion-dollar companies are already on the verge of bankruptcy? That the owners refuse to keep up with time as they're thriving? Young competitors begin to take over the market. What's good, you guys? This is Market Thrive. And today, we're going to talk about the financial state of two of the biggest automobile companies, namely Ford and General Motors, and what might be the cause of their economic decline. Before I start the video, I would just like you to do me a favor by just hitting that subscribe button and the bell notification down below to keep you updated on this channel. So without further ado, let's hop into it. Before discussing finances, it's crucial to realize that this is a significant occurrence. Ford and GM have amassed enormous debt that their failures would influence the bond market by a significant amount. Four reporters, including Jessica Colombo, claimed that GM and Ford were filing for bankruptcy. This could lead to a downward spiral that has already left General Motors and Ford's balance sheet even worse. The present total debt of Ford is $175.7 billion US, which is larger than Iceland, Serbia, and Sri Lanka's GDP combined. Ford could absolutely pay for all of his employees $921,000 US if it had more money than debt. Additionally, Ford only has $30 billion in cash available equivalents, causing Ford's net debt to be extremely high as $144 billion US. Ford's bankruptcy is not just a recent event of a corporation dying. If Ford declared bankruptcy today, each US adult would be required to pay $689 US just to pay Ford's debt. That's correct, simply to satisfy Ford's debt. If tax revenue was divided fairly, you must pay the government about $700 if Ford declared bankruptcy. Not only that, but Ford's profits were already declining a great deal before the pandemic. Ford's US margin in the fourth quarter of 2019 shrank from 8.8% to 2.8%, and China's margin declined to 21.5%. This loss has become more severe in the year 2020's first quarter. Ford suffered a $2 billion loss, and unexpectedly, Ford managed to turn a $1 billion in revenue in the second quarter, despite a 53% decline in revenue from year to year. But don't be deceived, as Ford has a few excellent accountants available. As an illustration, one inquiry to make is, what do you consider a profit? Because the GAAP profit excludes borrowing fees. Guru claims that Ford is paying typically 1.05% annual interest on his $175.7 billion of debt. That's $2.6 billion in total annually. Ford's delays added up to $450 million in interest over the next 2020 to the following quarter, which just highlights the immediate accounting wizardry at Ford. Now that we are aware of Ford's issues, we can rapidly scan GM's finances and observe their own desperate situation. Recently, GM reached an agreement with the fraudsters. Nikon Motors is an example of the automaker's desperation. Don't misunderstand me. The GM side of the bargain was reasonable. Trevor Milton consented to distribute $2 billion so Nikola would be able to make a purchase of the GM batteries and hydrogen fuel cells. Yet to connect your company to the fraud reveals the automaker's desperation, and in particular, the GM CEO, Mary Barra. GM controls assets worth $128 billion US total owed, as well as a net debt of $98 billion. The car manufacturer is also spending money rapidly while having competent financial experts like Ford. 2020's second quarter saw GM lost $758 million, which is a smaller amount than Ford may have lost, but it is still a loss. Given their debt loads, it is without a doubt that Ford and GM is going to be bankrupt. But the question is when? Each year, automakers increase their debt. Every quarter, this debt bubble is well known to pop at some point. Ford has added 19 vehicles in the last 6 months with $1 billion in debt. GM has also increased its investment by $23 billion. Given the amount of debt already present, the high level of interest is not surprising. Recently, Ford's credit rating was reduced to trash status, which means their bonds are trash. If you buy Ford bonds, you probably won't ever see that money ever again. Ford's first set of bonds had a value of $3.5 billion. Interest is calculated at 8.5% per year. As you might have guessed, GM is in the same boat, as the automobile manufacturer was relegated to trash and ultimately sold for $4 billion with interest-bearing bonds of 6.25%. This hint not only suggests GM and Ford's dismal financial situation, but also impending bankruptcies. Ford and GM's hesitation to commit fully to using electric vehicles is causing severe issues. Excellent internal combustion engines have fueled the world economy to enhance all forms of transportation in the world. Though they have slowed down innovation, better electric automobiles are emerging and improved with the development of temperature controls for batteries. Additionally, battery energy density is rising from both GM and Ford. The first to be bankrupt will probably be Ford. Ford has terrible DNA inside of its supervision. They have assembled a group of managers who have resisted embracing change. Mark Fields, the former CEO of Ford, said in an interview when asked if he's intimidated by Elon Musk and their electric vehicles, said, quote, "We take all of our competitors very, very seriously. And actually, when you look at the level of competition that we have in the industry with our traditional competitors, and when you look at these competitors and non-traditional competitors, we're embracing that it's extremely exciting for us. We're not looking at it as a threat," end quote. And when the interviewer followed up by saying that Elon Musk is down the track in a way that Ford is not, he immediately became defensive and said, quote, "I would disagree with that. Now, up to date, his company has catered to a very affluent consumer. Our approach, we have one of the largest selections of electrified vehicles, conventional hybrids, plug-in hybrids, and battery electric vehicles. As I said, we're number 2 seller in the US and electrified and number 1 on plug-in hybrids. We have a lot of experience here," end quote. This man has constructed the Ford's management and staff, yet he is not intimidated by the rivalry, the market for electric vehicles, and denies that Tesla has a problem. Given that, it stands to reason that the new Ford CEO Jim Hackett has endured terrible hardships managing the company. He might possibly be worse than Mark because he participated in a CNN interview claiming that Elon is competing with not Henry Ford himself. He said, quote, "I happen to compete with a rocket scientist who's really smart. I respect that about him. And yet he's competing with the ultimate disruptor in Henry Ford," end quote. To assert that Elon is in competition with Henry Ford is utterly absurd, and I don't say it to belittle Henry Ford. Jim said that in order for him to take the blame off of him, Jim Hackett is 65 and has enough money to retire. He is merely gathering his annual salary of $17.5 million until he is let go. When it comes to GM, the story is constant. Mary Barra, the CEO of GM, has consistently noted that electric vehicles are the future. However, her behavior doesn't match hers. There is a massive EV lineup on GM arriving soon. But what are the specs and how much will it cost? They incur expenses due to the sluggish electrification. Only a matter of time will pass before both Ford and GM declare bankruptcy. Ultimately, both are pivotal moments when the Tesla cyber attack occurs. A vehicle is currently being produced. The F-150 is Ford's favored car, Ford's most profitable vehicle, even if Tesla only manages to obtain 5 market shares expressed as a percentage that would make Ford less profitable. Essentially, this is the same for GM. GM disclosed in 2018 that the manufacturer produces $17,000 for every sold full-sized pickup truck and pre-tax profit. Tesla has received over 750,000 pre-orders. Eventually, a Cybertruck will grab some of the money made from vintage autos, could leave Ford and GM's loan payments unpaid, and eventually resulting in both automakers failing. The Cybertruck is anticipated to arrive in production. As a result, Ford and GM may be bankrupt by 2023. All our lives, we see these billion-dollar companies thrive in the automotive market. But as it shows, if they continue to go down that path, they might just meet their end. So how about you guys? What do you think the future holds for these automotive companies? Do you also believe that they can go bankrupt? Feel free to jot down your thoughts in the comments section below. If you enjoyed today's video, please leave a like. And if you want to stay updated on our posts, hit that subscribe button as well. Once again, this is Market Thrive signing off.